2001 A Space Odyssey is that movie that might have been very popular in its time, and it's also talked about today because, after all, it is a Stanley Kubrick movie. But against new sci-fi movies like Prometheus, Alien Covenant, Arrival, or Project Hail Mary, it becomes clear that it does not hold up today, especially visually. But entertainment-wise, it is, for example, better than Project Hail Mary. That is one of the most overrated sci-fi movies ever made. But that's not what I'm here to talk to you about today. I'm rather here to tell you why the movie fails to compete with new sci-fi movies made today. But first, why was the movie initially so popular back in 1968? I think to answer that question, we have to look at how few sci-fi movies that were made in 1968. This was before Close Encounters of the Third Kind, before E.T. from 1982, and even before the first Alien movie from Ridley Scott. So people in 1968 had literally nothing to compare this movie with, since sci-fi movies barely existed at that time. Now today, almost 60 years later, we of course have an ocean of movies to compare this movie with that might have been considered a masterpiece in its own time, but clearly does not hold up today. So I've touched upon a visual aspect, but now we'll go a bit more into detail on that. It is not only space itself that looks kind of scuffed, it is especially a problem with how the spaceships look and the space station we see the meetings in. Even in movies like Sunshine and Ad Astra, this looks a whole lot better. But at the time, we had, of course, excel a lot more when it comes to the technology to make elements on the screen look a whole lot better. Imagine the CGI or visual elements in 2026, rather than in between 1965 and 1966, which was when this movie was filmed. Compared to those kind of movies today and how space travel looks on the big screen, the movie simply looks totally outdated. The movie clearly has some cool elements like the tension that is brought upon us in the second part of the movie, and how it does this experimental stuff with the black screen with audio only to symbolize the big nothing in the eternity at the end of the universe. And also scenes shown to you without any sounds where the main character is floating around in space. On these elements, the movie was way ahead of its time. Nevertheless, I feel it takes too much time before a row where the insane lies in a movie, which takes place when the supercomputer known as HAL 9000 goes rogue and takes over the steering of the ship and does what it wants, for example, by killing everybody in the crash data on the ship, and the whole mission goes astray. At the same time, the opening 20 minutes of this movie, with these monkeys, I see it as pretty unnecessary. Maybe there is some symbolism tied into that, but I fail to see the entertainment value there. A further critique I have to give is that some of the things in the movie are badly explained. It was not until after the movie, when I googled it, that I found out that the ending is that the main character gets seized by aliens, and he sees himself aging fast and 9 before he then is reborn as a big star child and roams around in space. In addition to the object that they discover, it's not that well explained, but of course that is only natural, because it is the biggest mystery with this movie that keeps us guessing. Nevertheless, we could wish to know more about it even earlier, to get an even deeper understanding of the movie. Appreciate that the movie does not have that much of a build-up before you see the mission, and not any flashbacks while you follow the mission like you see in Project Hail Mary. But when everything looks so outdated compared to what they were able to make today, it is not easy to get immersed into the movie, even though it is a lot better near the end rather than in the beginning. You want to live yourself into a real cool space world, but it does not happen here. Furthermore, I think the movie falls into what I would call a pitfall of symbolism, because we do in a way focus a bit too much on the symbolism, the dark nothingness, the endless eternity, the endless universe. Of course, some of this is a bit unique, but instead of going on the deep end of this, we could see a bit more of how the main character did his mission, what his intentions were, and how this HAL 9000 computer could go rogue. Maybe you could see in real time how the other twin computer failed. The main character only hears this from mission control, but it would be way more interactive if you saw how also the other twin computer made the wrong calculations. All in all, lastly, I failed to see why this movie, even after all these almost 60 years, is considered a masterpiece, because there's really nothing too special about this movie, and it clearly does not hold up today, because I've seen a lot of sci-fi movies that are better than this one, but for me, it is a 6 out of 10, so it is of course better than my rating for Project Hail Mary.